Understanding the different approaches is important, but just as important is to understand the different stages of policy process and the different types of policies. Policy analysts have divided the policy process, or sometimes called the policy cycle, into 5 stages. These stages include the following in order: agenda, what problems are deemed important and solvable to be placed on an agenda; formation, development of a policy or program that can most effectively address the problem while limiting adverse consequences and cost; adoption, the government accepts the policy and either through an agency or by Congress making the policy bill a law; implementation, the state executes the policy; and finally, evaluation, determining the success and failures and making recommendations to address the weaknesses and or appropriating more resources, expanding already successful programs. At each stage, policy analysts and policy entrepreneurs are aware of the other stages and might anticipate what will occur several stages ahead. For example, when Obama contemplated the Affordable Care Act, he sought to generate consensus and formulated a more conservative program than his original and more liberal single-payer program. That is, during the formation stage, he considered the adoption stage, even though he had the votes to pass it without the Republican vote. Policy analysts also categorize policies into 5 types: constituent policy regarding personnel and budgetary organization; distributive policy allocating goods and services to particular groups in society, such as free public education for minors; regulatory policy placing limits and constraints on groups and the general public, such as restricting car emissions, prohibiting the consumption of alcohol by minors, creating a rent control zone; self-regulatory policy, usually policies made sometimes at the request of a group, hence self-regulatory, to benefit its members, such as required license to practice medicine; and redistributive policy, the distribution of goods, services, and wealth in efforts to create greater equality by transferring resources, usually through taxes, from the wealthy to the poor. Many policies do not fit neatly into any of the 5 categories. For example, policies which maintain roads seem not to fit in any one policy. A 6th policy not mentioned in the Anderson textbook is monetary policy, which is controlled by the Federal Reserve Board and serves to stabilize the economy, control inflation, regulate the market, stabilize unemployment. Economists argue that less than 4% unemployment is unhealthy, foster economic activity evenly throughout the country and among different markets, etc. In this module lecture, 5 basic approaches to understanding public policy were offered, and the 5 stages of the policy process and the 5 different types of policies. Each approach and stage in the policy process and policy types can help us understand first why a policy was passed, and second, why a policy was successful and what failed to achieve the desired goals. The success of different approaches to predict and explain a policy depends on the nature of the policy. For example, the group approach will be more successful in describing the success of a policy regarding same-sex marriage than the rational choice approach. The subject concerns conflicting groups. Although those who support same-sex marriage might be maximizing their benefit, most of those who oppose this policy are not maximizing their benefit and minimizing their cost. After all, the same-sex marriage does not prohibit heterosexual marriage.